Well, in addition to some of the scientific advances that have occurred over the last 50, almost 60 years now since the early description of the disease, and was Mike Denborough described it first in 62 or 63?
60.
60.
Yes.
And obviously there were observations you related to me before that
Yes.
about patients that were susceptible and would fry up or boil up in the operating room. People were aware, but it didn't have a name at that point in time.
Right. And I think I mentioned to you one name, Dr. John Campine, who is an anesthesiologist and was chairman in Wisconsin. And through the internet, I came across a newspaper article that was describing Dr. Campine when he was a medical student. And he came home, and his father, being an anesthesiologist, invited him to come into the OR and observe a surgical procedure. And Dr. Campine relates that his father gave an unusual anesthetic to this patient, and he says, "Why didn't you do the usual anesthetic?" And he said, "Because of the patient's name." He says, "Anyone with this name does not get a general anesthetic. We give them a regional anesthetic because they get very, very hot and have very, very bad reactions to the general anesthetics." And that had to be somewhere in the 50s, that they were aware. They didn't know it was didn't have the name malignant hyperthermia, but they knew that it was a familial thing that they had to be careful about in this particular family.
And so in your career, you've been aware of one hotspot of MH penetrance that has occurred in families in Wisconsin,
Right.
another in Texas. We've discovered a substantial number of patients in the Florida region, and there may be other hotspots, as we call it genetically, throughout North America. A couple things that have happened because of the advances in genetic research and the increasing determination of causative mutations. Dr. Rosenberg has actually stated that from some of his colleagues, they believe that the presence of an MH susceptible mutation may actually occur in as many as 1 in 400 or 500 people, rather than earlier estimates of 1 in 2,500 to 1 in 250,000. So this orphan disease that you did pioneering work in may no longer be an orphan, and although we're not yet to the point of doing genetic screening before we do every elective anesthetic, we have to think about the fact that each one of these episodes not only can be life-threatening, but they're quite expensive. And there's significant not only morbidity, but mortality. These patients need to be protected if at all possible. And currently we use the gold standard caffeine halothane contraction test that, to my knowledge, has never had a false negative. Maybe you are aware, but I'm not aware of any.
No, there was one report, but it wasn't substantiated. But the test is very reliable.